Okay guys, welcome back to the channel, and we are out here. Sorry I didn't dress up, but we're doing what we do in the garage, and I didn't want to get any more clothes greasy and oily. I've had enough of that. We are working on the Fairlane, actually getting all of the suspension buttoned up. I'm down to the last thing. I'm waiting for my daughter to get out of bed because I need her to help me bleed the brakes. We ran into a couple of issues on the Fairlane suspension. But besides that, we have some issues to report on the bed winch. As you guys probably tuned in last week, we installed a bed winch on the Ford Maverick to help bring the boat in when we get to the launch ramp. And as you know, in the video, I did say that the remote did not work. So we went and talked to Amazon, and I'll tell you exactly what happened. Let me turn the camera around and show you what we have. Okay, I did contact Amazon, and they informed me that, and I told them, you know, the winch works fine. The remote does not work. We were able to use the wired line, but that kind of defeats the purpose of me actually having all that available at the water, being able to pull the line out to the boat, use the remote to wind the boat up as I'm heading back to the truck. So we reached out to Amazon and the manufacturer, Zeak International, whatever they are. And they come down to this. Amazon said that they could not send a remote to just send the entire winch back. So at that point I'm figuring, okay, well, I've got to figure out what winch I'm going to use. I need one with a remote. That one was a good deal price-wise. It had fairly good reviews. But then when I went back to Amazon, I did notice that a lot of people that had the model with the remote either did not get the remote or the remote wasn't working. And I really don't want one that's not going to be reliable. And you know, most of these parts, these winches probably only have maybe 1-2 year warranty at best. So let me tell you what happened, and I'll turn the camera around so you can see. Okay, here is the board that we mounted the winch on. It actually worked very well. I had to use my own bolts and nuts to make that whole thing work, but now there's nothing there. To your right, we have not one but two of the Zeak 3500 remote operated 3,500 pound electric ATV winches. Why do we have two? Well, after I contacted Amazon, they sent me out a label to return. So actually on last Sunday, I get a notification on my phone that your ordered item is about to arrive at your house. So I'm like, what item? I didn't order anything. So I looked on the site, and it was showing that Amazon, Zeak, the people who are the manufacturers of this winch, were sending me another winch. And at that point I'm like, okay, that'll work. You know, I can get the remote, and maybe one of the two has got to work, so I'll just take the one that doesn't work, put it back in the other box, send the other winch back, and it'll be end of the story. That's the best case scenario, and unfortunately the best case scenario did not happen, because I got home, I rushed home. I got the new winch out of the box, and I didn't mount this one because I already had one that I've mounted. I don't like to return, so even though they allow you to return, I try to return it in like new condition. And you know, if you mount that winch down there, it's going to have some marks on it. It's still packed up nicely, and all the parts and pieces are back in there, but it's not new anymore because someone has mounted it. Well, I take all the stuff out of the box. Make a long story short, I followed all the directions just like I did on the first one, and no light comes on for the remote. I went back into the house, got the directions again, and read the entire directions again to make sure that I'm doing it right, because I don't want to be stupid and send this back, because I really want this to work. Because as you saw in the video early, I've already drilled the holes in that wood. So even if I get another winch, I'm going to either probably end up having to drill more holes and it's going to weaken it. I don't know. I really would like to have this winch. I like the winch. It actually worked good, other than the fact that the remote did not work. So that's where we are now. Now I have not one, but I have two Zeak 3500 winches, and the remote on neither one of them works. So now I've got to return all of that and find another winch. What can I say in review? If you want a winch for your bed and it does not matter about the remote mechanism, well, order one without the remote. Or you can order this one and just don't expect the remote to work. It was still I think out the door it was 116 bucks. It wasn't like it broke the bank. But if you buy something and you want something to work, then obviously you're going to want it to work. Now back to the Fairlane, which we did run into a couple of issues. Nothing big, but some things that you'll need to know if you're going to put the same system under your classic Ford as I did. So I'm going to turn the camera around once again. And for all you guys who have been following, everything has been mounted under there. The suspension is all ready to go. And as soon as my daughter gets down here, and I actually have a bleeder that you can use by yourself. And that's ideal because I'm all of the time and lots of times working by myself. But before we get to that, let's show you the first issue that we ran into. On these lower mounts for the coilovers, as you can see, everything has been mounted back up in there. We painted, undercoated, and all of the above. But yeah, I actually have the shocks adjusted to just contact with the suspension fully dropped down. Right now it's fully dropped down. There's no weight on the suspension. We'll adjust the ride height when we get the car out of the air. But if you notice in here, one of the things that the shock manufacturer had said is that this lower mount needs to be mounted flat on your control arm. Well, with these, if you notice, if you go right up through here, that's where the weld bead is, and it comes up on both sides, the weld bead. And with without some type of spacer, it would not mount flat. So what we did, and it was the best. First I thought, well, maybe we should ground the welds down, but I didn't want to compromise the integrity of that arm. So what we did, we had some leftover thick washers that came from some of the other suspension parts from the old parts, and we had new parts. And what we did is we cut those on the sides a flat surface, so that now they fit right in between there and they take up the gap, so now it sits flat and level on both sides. So we were able to do that. And now if you look down here, I'll show you the reason why you can't even use a one-person bleeder on these brakes. And if you look back here, here is the bleeder valve. Now in order to bleed those with the do-it-yourself self-brake bleeder, you have to be able to get a hose on here. It's a hose with a cap. But as you can see, there's no room. I tried to get my cap on there. There's absolutely no room to get that on there. So I'll have to bleed them with the conventional method, as far as somebody getting in the car and actually having the brakes and bleed the brakes the old-fashioned way. But that's all we have left. The suspension is all done. I'm going to show you back under here and show you everything that we replaced. The stock springs, we have double adjustable coilovers. We replaced the upper control arms with the SPC Shelby drop arms. We replaced the lower control arm with the Global West, and we also replaced the lower tie rod ends on both sides. Everything else is straight. We are going to eventually, of course we did paint, we blasted these spindles and painted them. These upper ball joints came with the SPC arm, and they are a quality piece. We also replaced the sway bar links, and if you look even further under, we also replaced the sway bar bushings. I'm not sure if you got, there we go, the sway bar bushings as well. It's funny how I ordered the sway bar links in blue and the sway bar bushings in blue. Sway bar links came in white, which they are now off-white because they're so dirty from me putting my grubby hands on them. And then of course the others came in black, and basically I don't care. That's not a big gear. So nevertheless, we're getting the drivetrain ready, the suspension, and we're still working on the engine program. We still got to figure out what engine we're doing, and I have is like two maybe three choices tops that I'm leaning towards, because I have a great idea of what I want to do, but I can tell you based on what I've already looked at, it's going to be between I don't want to go, let's say it's going to be between 550 horsepower and 650 horsepower. That's a big difference, 100 horsepower one way or the other, but we don't want too much, but we don't want too little either. I want to be able to smoke the tires every now and then. Yes, the Reverend likes to smoke the tires. Not down the street, not in the neighborhood. No, we're not doing that. Okay guys, we are back. I do have the Fairlane down on the ground. And can I say it's almost on the ground? Before we look at the Fairlane, how you like my shirt? Compliments of Sticker Mule. So try Sticker Mule out. They do some amazing stuff. I just sent them a picture just to see how one would turn out, and just so happened a picture that I sent to them. And if you can look at this shirt closely, my mom is in the passenger seat. So my mom is forever immortalized on my shirt that I had done by Sticker Mule. See her? Hey mom, how you doing? She was chilling that day. That was the day we went for the first ride in the Fairlane. So the Fairlane is back on the ground. Let's turn the camera around and I'll show you exactly where we are. Okay guys, when we begin this project, it is always necessary, in case you guys are wondering how you go about doing one of these swaps and what should you do. I didn't do a complete tutorial on the installation because it's pretty straightforward, but I'm leaving you bits and pieces of things that you will want to take note of. When you do a coilover swap on the front, you're supposed to take a measurement of the right and left front fender. You want to measure how far from the center of the fender right here to the ground. Now on my Fairlane, that measurement was 27 inches. Now when I brought the car out of the garage, I hadn't adjusted anything. I just put it up basically so that the suspension at full droop was contacting enough to keep the spring in place and just have enough room to begin the adjustments without the spring. If you were to lower it down, basically the spring wouldn't pop out. So I didn't put a lot of tension on it. So I know we have a lot of adjustment that we can use. So how low is it right now? Okay, right now it is 23.5 inches off the ground. So basically we dropped 3.5 inches on each side, and that's pretty dropped. I mean, that's pretty slammed in the front. So if you look at it from this angle, yeah, the front is way lower in the front than it was. What we're going to do now is lift the vehicle up in order to adjust it. Remember the roller bearings that we put in there so it would be easy to adjust? Well, that's what we're going to use. But in order for you to adjust the suspension, whether it's up or down, you need to lift the weight off of the ground, both wheels off the ground. So that's what we're about to do. Okay guys, so we end up leaving the ride height at 25.5 inches in the front, which is an 1.5 inches lower than it was. I could lower it down some more, but if I'm going to do that, I'm going to have to run a slightly narrower tire in the front. Right now I have a 225 on there, and the bulge from that tire actually rubs part of the front fender on the inside in the turn. So I'm probably going to be going to a 215 tire in the front, which will eliminate the bulge. It'll still be almost as wide as that and still look cool. So that's what she looks like. But hey, you guys, thank you for tuning into the channel. Remember to like and subscribe, and you can watch some of those commercials too. They help the channel out. But thank you guys for watching, and have a blessed day.